Well, Man United have beaten Man City in the FA Cup final. No one really expected this. Let's break down how it happened. Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Erik Ten Hag really needed this because rumors came out that he would be getting sacked after this regardless of the result, but he pulled a rabbit out of a hat here. This was one of the better tactical performances we have seen from Man United in a long time. So let's go ahead and take a look at the tactical board, see how both sides set up and what the basic plans were. So here are the shapes of both teams. Man City with Ortega in goal, and a back four, Gvardiol, Ake, Stones, and Walker. Rodri as the pivot holding midfielder. Kovacic was more or less an 8 that would float around in these areas. Foden and De Bruyne were both attacking midfielders that operated and sort of rotated in the central area, Haaland up front, and then Bernardo Silva was out on the right-hand side. He was definitely a winger and providing a scenario where Walker could bomb forward and they could create 2v1s if possible. Now, Man United had a really interesting plan to combat this, and Erik Ten Hag seems to have understood that his team is super leaky in midfield. He shored that up by making a box. Double pivot of Amrabat and Mainoo, and then in front of them, McTominay and Bruno. And it was a box. I will show you that. It was so abundantly clear. Up front, Garnacho and Rashford basically as two high and wide wingers, no center forward. All right, so those are the basic shapes. We'll take a look at them in action in a sec, but first, Man United last year went down 1-0 in 18 seconds. And so basically off the kickoff, the ball went back to Ederson. He launched it forward, and the knockdown from Erling Haaland, it would land at Ilkay Gundogan's feet. He would have a sublime volley to score. Here in this scenario, Haaland wins the first ball. McTominay wins the second, which is crucial because now Man United basically survived that first 15 seconds of the game. And as it drops to Bruno, he chests it, and he already sees Rashford running. He knows what the plan is. City's back line is very, very high, as they would be all game. And Bruno just very nicely sends the ball over, and Rashford has the jump on Walker. Rashford wins this race. The only problem is his first touch isn't great. Walker gets back and is able to cut the ball out. All right, so now let's take a look at this game plan that Erik Ten Hag had. The shape of Man United in defensive position. Stones has the ball, and Manchester City were really clogged up. They ended up just cycling the ball around, looking for passes, but look at Haaland. I mean, there's nowhere for him to go. De Bruyne is here marked by Mainoo. They would stand on the ball and look around and not have very many options. Here you got Foden behind the referee here. Amrabat knows where he is, close to him. Garnacho tucking in all the way to Kovacic because you don't want any of these players to get the ball in this midfield area. And Man United did a very good job of clogging it up. Bruno Fernandes was also excellent in the match. I think man of the match for me. Here he is pressing on John Stones, forcing him to get rid of the ball quickly to Nathan Ake. And then watch Bruno. He's just going to jump right back into shape. McTominay comes to the left side of the box. Bruno's at the front of it. Rashford and Garnacho behind them. There's just really nowhere to go. Stones gets it. No one has any space. The big switch to Gvardiol is something they tried a few times, but Man United were always able to shift over. You didn't see Walker and Dalot earlier in this move because they were way down here, and Rashford would come all the way to help with Bernardo Silva to make sure that Dalot was not 2v1. In the end, Walker's just like, man, I'm getting no change. I'm going to go backwards. So here's another situation here. Stones gets the ball. Once again, you can see Manchester United. There's their box in midfield. Garnacho on the backside. Rashford dropping in. Kevin De Bruyne has come to the wide area. So Kobbie Mainoo knows I've left him alone. What's going to happen? Well, the rotation's going to be that Foden's going to come inside, make sure he doesn't get the ball. But Man United have done a very good job of overcrowding the area and making sure that City slowed down. Once you've got Rodri standing on the ball and not really sure where to go and just moving it for the sake of moving it, you're doing a good job defensively. But before we get into Man United attacking, you could actually see their confidence grow by the mistakes City were making, and it changed the feeling and the vibe of the game. So here's an example. Bernardo Silva dribbling across the box. Foden checks in. He's able to get away from Amrabat, which is very good for him. This didn't happen often. He takes a look and sees Gvardiol starting to step forward, but Gvardiol hasn't started running. Foden tries to lead Gvardiol too much, and the ball just harmlessly goes out of play. De Bruyne would do the exact same thing just a few moments later. Looks out wide, sees Gvardiol, and he just overhits the ball and leads Gvardiol too much. Again, miscommunication. It's all well and good to do these kinds of mistakes up in the attacking or final third and the ball just goes out of play. But when you do them in your own box, that's when things start to get really hairy. Bruno gets it, does well to settle it, get his head up, and actually kickstart an attack here. He's going to find a little split to Mainoo. Very good little ball there. Mainoo being followed by Rodri. goes into Rashford. Nice little 1-2, really. It's fantastic play, and Mainoo's starting to burst forward. He played very, very well. But Mainoo has to chop it back. There's too many Man City players coming back, and this was good defensive pressure for Man City to get back. But look at this from Bruno Fernandes. Outside of the foot Trivela, over the back line to Rashford running through, and if he takes this touch off the chest, maybe out in front of him, make sure he cuts off Walker and goes towards goal, I mean, he's in. He's got a one-on-one. But he waits and tries to bring the ball down with his feet. Walker's able to get his chest on it and steal it. But Walker, I mean, the simple pass to Ortega is the easiest thing, or turn out and go the other way. Instead, he picks the craziest choice, which is play John Stones. Even though McTominay's coming. Just play that ball that Stones is not anticipating. McTominay is basically just running at the wrong angle. If he had been one step this way, he just hits this one time and probably scores. Instead, he's got to turn a little bit, give Stones enough time to get the block in. But crazy for Man City. And now Pep was getting peak frustrated because they did the same thing about 30 seconds later. Here's Gvardiol with the ball. Goes back to Ortega. He looks up. Bernardo's making the run outside, so we'll just go to him. Does well to get rid of Rashford, but he clearly didn't have any options because decides to turn around. That's the safe bet, I guess. Goes back to Stones, and there's plenty of time here. Stones could try and find a switch out to Gvardiol because that is what Ake is telling him to do. Ortega could probably do the same thing because ball's going to come to him, but instead, Kovacic decides, I'm going to check all the way in, and Ortega goes for it. Again, McTominay right inside the box, able to almost steal the ball from Kovacic. He does just enough to block him off. Bruno's running in to try and get it. Kovacic just gets it out of his feet, and Ake is able to clear. This is suicidal football from City, and if you're Man United, you're looking at this and you're going, we've got him. We've got him rattled. Let's go. So again, I talked about errors, some in the final thirds, some in your own box. You can get away with them only so long, and eventually Ortega would make the biggest error of the match. This is just insane. We'll pick this up from the start. Ball out from Onana, won by City. Walker has it, takes a look back, plays it into Rodri. Now, Bernardo Silva is right here. He is the target for this Rodri pass. They're just not looking at each other. There's no communication here in terms of where Bernardo Silva wants the ball, and he's going to check back. Well, Rodri's going to play it right to where Silva is currently standing, and they just did not read each other well. They just did not communicate in any way. Amrabat is the quickest to react. Now, he is closed down pretty well here. Ball goes back to Dallo, but he's already seen that Garnacho is running off the back of Gvardiol, and it looked to me like Garnacho had to be a mile offside, but he wasn't. The ball bounces. Gvardiol bodies him off and gets the header. Does a great job defensively. But the goalkeeper, Ortega, has left his penalty area, and I do not know why. There is zero reason for him to be here. 2 steps back, and he probably catches that ball. But instead, he gets looped over, and Garnacho has the easiest goal of the day. And so now City are behind. They've been playing poorly. They slowed the pace of the game down so much, it was going to be hard to see how they were going to regain their rhythm, and Man United were feeling good. But this is the most un-City-like thing I saw pretty much all match. Ball comes in, gets headed away by Stones. Kovacic looks up and finds Bernardo Silva. Chance for a counterattack maybe, because Man United do have 5 players now behind the ball, and they've got to recover. So if you can play the right pass here, you might be able to get them in. De Bruyne is sort of running, not interested in getting the ball. I think he should be making a run into the channel that Bernardo can connect. Bernardo looks up and just goes, all right, I'm going to go long, try and find Haaland. I guess no one made this run. So it's a dumped ball to Rafael Varane. And like I said, this is the kind of thing you almost never see from Man City, is just dumped balls to nobody. All right, this is Marcus Rashford at the final whistle in tears. He did score a goal. We're going to show it to you here, but it did get disallowed. This is just pathetic defending for Man City, to be honest. Ball goes back to Rafael Varane. He has an age to look up and decide what he wants to do. Haaland is trying to get over there, but he's just not able to get across before Rafael Varane hits the ball. Watch this insanely high line. Now, Garnacho is ahead of them. He ended up being offside, but here he is getting in, ends up playing across to Rashford. Rashford puts it away. This is tight. I mean, we're talking maybe 1 yard, 1 step. So Man City, when Varane had this much space, they should have dropped off. They essentially got lucky, in my opinion, that Garnacho got his run just a little bit off. But this was the danger, and Man United would keep doing it, and eventually they would score. So we got to pay attention to the Man United runners and the way Man City did not track them on this goal. Bruno Fernandes looks up, sees Mainoo bursting through, so he chops back and ends up playing it forward to Mainoo. He just decides, I'm just going to keep possession, go out to Rashford. Very important to keep an eye on these players. Kovacic is right next to Bruno Fernandes, so he should just stay with him. Foden is right next to Mainu, so he should probably stay with him as well. Ball goes out to Rashford, Mainu, and Bruno Fernandes are going to run forward, and they are not going to be followed. Every City player is staring at the ball. Garnacho is offside here, but he knows what he's doing. His plan is to see the City back line and just jump back onside as this ball gets played across, which is exactly what he does. Takes a step, sees that Ake is keeping him on, and now the switch can happen. Ball goes all the way across. A fantastic ball from Rashford to lead Garnacho. Garnacho receives the ball, gets his head up, looks inside. Now, I mentioned the distance between the City players and their Man United counterparts they should be marking. Well, Kovacic is now about 10 yards away from Bruno Fernandes, which isn't good, but Foden has completely lost Mainu. It just did not follow him at all. This creates a problem because now Man United have a 4 against 3. Stones has to make a decision. Who do I pick up here? Do I pick up Bruno Fernandes or do I go with Kobe Mainu? Aaron Wan-Bissaka making this run forward is what forces Nathan Ake to stay with him here instead of drop into Bruno Fernandes. Kyle Walker recognizes what's going on and is like, oh God, I gotta break back and help. Because he was on Rashford, but Rashford's redundant. The one that ran through was Mainu, and he ran through unchecked because Foden let him go. So as I said, Aaron Wan-Bissaka makes this run, Ake follows him. Bruno Fernandes, top of the box, all the time in the world. He does an absurd class no-look pass right into Mainu's feet, who is able to tuck it away, and it's 2-0. So this would take us to halftime. Man United in total control according to the score, and also they played fantastic. They kept City out entirely. City had very few opportunities. After the match, Pep was asked, hey, did the title celebrations last week make you guys come out so slow? He was like, absolutely not. This is my fault. I set the team up wrong, and we weren't creating any chances because of the game plan that I gave them. And so Pep saw this and was like, I need to make some changes. So I'll leave Man United's shape alone because they didn't need to change anything. Everything was going fantastic for them. What Man City did was bring on Jeremy Doku and put him on the left side, and they removed Mateo Kovacic. And then they brought on Akanji for Ake. Stones would go into midfield and make it a 4-man midfield because that's what Man United had. They have a box in midfield, 4 players, and Pep wanted to match them up. The other thing he wanted to do was get width on both sides because Bernardo Silva was the only winger in the first half. Gvardiol was making runs up the left, but here he puts on Doku and he says, Doku, I want you to run at Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So Jeremy Doku would have the biggest impact of any Man City player in this match. Coming off the bench at halftime, he was just terrific. Here you go, De Bruyne pointing, send the ball out to him. This is what's really great about Doku is he dribbles with his head up, so he's always looking for options, and he's just so quick. He loves also finding these little splits between the defender that's here and the second guy closing in to help him. Foden really, I think, should score this, and he just made an absolute mess of it. So that was Doku's first major involvement. It took a little while, but then 30 seconds later, he would set up Haaland for his best chance of the game. Phil Foden, instead of driving at the back line and doing it himself, Phil Foden just goes, I'm going to give it to Doku, and Doku does a brilliant job here of finding Phil Foden. Watch this nice little skill. Roll, step, left-footed pass inside. And Phil Foden here, I don't know if he got a call from behind him, if Haaland said anything, or if he just recognized, I can't shoot this. Varane's too close. I'm not going to be able to do anything. And he just lets it run. Really interesting decision. Haaland blasts it off the bar, and that is the best chance Haaland would get all game. Now City would make another change. De Bruyne would come off to everyone's surprise, and Alvarez would take his place. Basically, he and Phil Foden had similar roles, kind of free in this area, while Rodri and Stones were more or less anchoring it down. So Alvarez would get his big chance right here, and unfortunate for him that he missed it, but ball goes into Rodri from Stones. He looks up very quickly, plays the ball into Phil Foden. Now, Man United had done such a good job defensively for the majority of the match. This was one of the very few breakdowns they had, and there's a few reasons why. All right, so the box shape is there. It's just that Mainu and Fernandes have switched for a moment. Rashford and Garnacho are where they were supposed to be the whole time, but Bruno here lets Foden get ahead of him and get the ball. Foden does well to turn, and this is the problem. Amrabat has lost Julian Alvarez. Diego Dallo is clearly not telling him, hey dude, back up, drop in, because Alvarez is off his back. Now, Amrabat does take a look, but he just doesn't recognize the situation well enough, doesn't see that the split is on right here, and Alvarez is gonna run off the back of him. He doesn't close it, he doesn't get back far enough, and the pass from Foden is absolutely perfect. Amrabat turning his back on the ball instead of running with it is not the way you should do it, but the first touch by Alvarez was underneath his feet. He was never able to dig it out, and he put it wide. For me, that was the best chance for Man City. In the end, they would get on the board. Now here, there's a free kick. Instead of sending it in the box, they just go, we're giving it to Doku and let him go 1v1, and maybe he can beat Wan-Bissaka down the line and send it in. That's exactly what the plan was. Puts the ball in, but it's McTominay who's there to clear. Now Bernardo Silva runs it down, gets it, plays it back to Alvarez. Alvarez looks across. Should he cross it? There's not really an obvious ball or run there, so he's going to shift it to Phil Foden. Does exactly what he should do. Give it right back to Doku. Garnacho comes to help Wan-Bissaka, but this is Jeremy Doku at his absolute finest. I just don't know how you defend this. A player who is so good at stopping you and shifting so quickly. Little step, touches the ball out, and basically he's created enough space where if he takes the shot one touch, it's going to beat Garnacho. If he takes another touch, Garnacho can catch up and maybe get in his way, but he's able to get the shot off. Onana has a very clear view of this, and so it should not beat him at his near post. City get on the board with what was about 10 minutes to go, but they couldn't do anything else after that. And so Man United win the FA Cup. And I show Erik ten Hag here because the guy now has 2 titles in 2 seasons with Man United. That's actually more than Arsenal or Liverpool in the past 2 seasons. Kind of wild. And apparently he's losing his job in the morning. What he said in response to that was, sack me, that's fine, I'll go win elsewhere. And you kind of wonder, well, what if he's got a full squad next season? Is it going to be better? The crazy thing to me is that this was like the only match I've seen United play in months where their midfield was actually tight. It's been so leaky throughout the season in a way that you wondered, like, what are they doing on the training field? In the end, Erik ten Hag, you got to give him his flowers. Congratulate him for winning the FA Cup. I have to congratulate Man United. They did a great job surprising us, and to be honest, they gave me some good stuff to work with in this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by. This is Campfire Football. Take it easy.